Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how I correctly predicted all 50 states, every single state in the 2024 presidential election. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss all my content, press the like button, share this video. Don't forget, we have memberships. If you're interested, you can find the links to that in the description section. So right here was my final official presidential election prediction about 9 days ago. So I predicted it roughly a week before or prior to the actual election day, November 5th. I called 312 electoral votes correctly for Donald Trump to Kamala Harris's 226. And in this video, I'm going to be explaining how I correctly predicted all 50 states. I think I was one of the most accurate, if not the most accurate, election predictor channel out of all of them. Obviously, I don't do forecasts, so this prediction was not based off of any type of models. As y'all know, I did not use any model at all. I don't have my own model to come up with my prediction. So what this came down to was literally very simple. I didn't use any type of 13 keys system or any type of polling data that was very complicated. It was very simple. I based it off of logic and reasoning. Literally, I went state by state individually with the exception for the Rust Belt, because what I did was if one Rust Belt state, voted in one direction, the rest of the blue wall states will follow, because as you guys all know, the Rust Belt hasn't split apart or broken apart from each other in a very long time. I believe since the 1980s or 70s or something like that. So what I did was I broke down each state individually and concluded reasoning why I think either state will swing either to the right or to the left. And guess what? I correctly predicted every single state based off of literally logic and reasoning. No model at all. I didn't have to come up with a model that took a very long time to build or anything like that. And I came out correct. 312 to 226, literally on the dot. I completely nailed this prediction. And mind you, I only predicted 2020 and 2022. Now, in terms of 2022, I was very off, but that doesn't really matter because that was the midterms. And then in 2020, I only missed two states, Georgia and Arizona. If you do not know, I predicted 48 out of 50 in 2020. And now in 2024, I correctly predicted all 50 states. So I went individually for every single battleground state, with the exception for the blue wall states, because if one of them swing to either direction, then the rest will follow. They don't typically split apart. And I originally was going to give Michigan to Kamala Harris, but because I already had Pennsylvania and Wisconsin leaning towards Trump, I cannot see it splitting because it rarely splits and breaks apart. Therefore, I had to barely give Michigan to Donald Trump, but I still underestimated him in terms of the margin. So meanwhile, I predicted every single state correctly, which I don't think anyone could do besides me. I still got the margins a little bit off. It really depends in which state. Some states I overestimated Republicans, other states I overestimated Democrats. It really depends. So let's start off with Nevada for the first swing state, and how I came up with the conclusion that Donald Trump was going to win it by a tilt margin of under percentage point. And I also underestimated him. Guess what? On election day, he actually won it by around 3 percentage points, which is a lean margin. So in terms of the margins, I underestimated Trump, but still, I was correct. He did win Nevada. So the reason for this prediction, why I called Nevada for Donald Trump a week prior to the actual election day, was because I thought he would flip Washoe County, and guess what? He did flip Washoe County, as you can see right here. It's in red. He won it by just about 0.5 percentage points, 49.1, 48.6. So I correctly predicted he would flip Washoe County. And I expected Harris to win Clark County, but I thought it would be narrowed up from 2020 compared to that election, which I also was correct. And I came to my conclusion that he was going to win the state of Nevada, and mainly due to the fact that he would perform way better, improve his margins among Hispanic voters. I thought Hispanic voters were key to his victory. And guess what? He ended up winning Hispanic men by 10 points more than Kamala Harris. Clark County only went to Harris by just a little bit over 2 percentage points. And that really thrived for Donald Trump, and it ended up going to his favor with the state's 6th electoral votes. So yet again, I didn't need any type of model. I based it off of reasoning and logic, and it ended up working out perfectly all 50 states, just like in Nevada. So the main reason why I had correctly predicted Nevada was because I thought he would do better among Hispanic voters. And I did use polls. I did, because majority of polls actually show Donald Trump performing way better among Hispanic voters. And that would play out important in Nevada, Florida, among Cuban Americans as well, which is why I predicted Trump would win Florida by 9 points. Even though I correctly predicted that, I actually underestimated him in terms of the margins. He won it by 13, as you can see right here, which is not even likely anymore. That's a safe margin, in my opinion. So, yeah, I came to the conclusion in Nevada that he would win by a tilt margin. He ended up winning by a lean margin. And then you have the state of Arizona. The main reason why I called it for a lean margin for Donald Trump, which I completely nailed that perfectly. I was very accurate. In Arizona, I had him winning it by around 2 percentage points. Guess what? He ended up winning by even greater than that, 6%. But we still have 20% left to be called. As you can see, 80% of the estimated vote is in. But as of right now, Arizona is likely not even lean for Donald Trump. So yet again, I slightly underestimated Trump in Arizona as well. So you may call me biased in favor of Trump, but I'm really not biased, because I literally nailed the prediction. I correctly called the race, and I put bias aside. And if Kamala was going to win the election, then I would have her winning it. But guess what? She didn't, and Trump won by 312, and I had him winning it by 312 electoral votes on the dot completely. And I even underestimated Donald Trump in some states, so you can't call me biased. So as for Arizona, I came to a conclusion with reasoning. Yet again, I did not use any model to correctly predict this, that the main reason why Biden won it in 2020 was because a lot of the McCain-style voters, people on the right, tend to call them neocons, establishment, and the rhinos. The the Mitt Romney lovers, a lot of them went for him in 2012 and 2008 for McCain as well. And Trump was very harsh to John McCain, and a lot of them broke for Biden in 2020. He was seen as more of a moderate candidate. Trump meanwhile was kind of extreme. Obviously, you had COVID and a lot of outlash against Donald Trump, and all of that really favored Joe Biden at the end of the day. Now, in 2020, I wrongly projected Trump would win Arizona. That's actually one of the 2 states I incorrectly projected. But in this election, I correctly predicted Trump would win this state. And a lot of them that voted for Biden in 2020, the McCain-style voters, actually went back for Donald Trump in this election. And that's the main reason why I had Trump winning this state, because Kamala is not seen as moderate at all, as Joe Biden was portrayed as in 2020. She's an establishment candidate, just like Hillary Clinton in 2016. And I thought Trump would win over the independent support and undecideds. And guess what? He did exactly that. And I was correct in the state of Arizona. And then you have the state of Georgia. I predicted Trump would win it and defeat Kamala Harris by about 2 percentage points, a lean margin. Guess what? I think I nailed the exact margin. He actually won it by around 2 percentage points. So I was extreme. Georgia was probably one of the more accurate states I predicted in terms of not only the victor but the margin as well. I had him winning by 2. Guess what? He won it by exactly around 2 percentage points, with around 95% of the estimated vote is in. Now, I did not use any type of model to predict Trump would win Georgia at all. I used it off of reasoning and logic. So the reasoning logic I used was that Biden got a lot of turnout among African American voters in the Atlanta metro area back in the 2020 election. And guess what? There was BLM on his side. And Trump didn't have that. Kamala Harris didn't have that at all in this election to help her or save her. And there was a lot of factors that Biden had in his favor and it went against Trump in 2020 that was not here this time around to save Kamala Harris. So I also included those type of factors. For example, major celebrity endorsements go in favor of Joe Biden in 2020. That did not happen this time around to save Kamala Harris. And even if it did, it didn't help her at all. And then you had COVID. That also is not here to save Kamala Harris, just like it did in 2020. And Donald Trump really benefited from that. And then you had BLM as well, which really pushed the suburbs in Minneapolis to the left. And you know what I also incorrectly predicted, actually? Kamala Harris would do better among women voters than Joe Biden. Guess what? She underperformed Joe Biden's performance among women by 3 percentage points. So that also caught me off guard. And we talk about Minnesota. I had it likely for Kamala by 5 points. It actually was closer than that. I believe around 4 percentage points, as you can see right here. And the main reason why was because Tim Walz was her VP. So she won it by a lean margin of 4 percentage points. So I thought he can really carry her, but I was off by just 1 point. But I pretty much was still accurate at the end of the day. So we go back to Georgia. I have Trump winning it by 2 points. I correctly predicted that because she just did not have the enthusiasm among African American voters that Biden once did in 2020. Not only that, as well as the governor here, Brian Kemp, also managed to pass election day laws regarding absentee ballots, which they have to be submitted by 8 p.m. and won't be accepted any later. That meant the state would be called faster, and I predicted the state would be called faster than 2020, and I was correct on that. It was called just like, a few hours after the election already started, like at, 10 p.m. Eastern time or somewhere around there. So I also predicted that as well. And then you have North Carolina. I had Trump winning it by a little bit over 2.5 percentage points. It was pretty accurate, but I also slightly underestimated him. As you can see, he won it by almost 4 percentage points, so 3.5. So I predicted he would win it by 2.5. So the margin was off by just 1 percentage point, but nonetheless, it was still accurate. I correctly predicted every single state. So what I thought was going to happen is Mark Robinson would drag down the race and narrow it up because he was just so bad, and I predicted Josh Stein would win, and I correctly predicted that. But by 8 points, he actually won it by 15% instead of that. But I thought Mark Robinson was going to hurt Donald Trump, but not enough for him to cost the state. So Kamala would win it, but it would be closer than when it ended up being. I had it 2.5. It was actually 3.5 percentage points, similar to his 2016 victory in this state. And then as for Virginia, I correctly predicted Kamala Harris would win this state. Republicans were hopeful that Trump was going to flip Virginia. I disregarded that. I said, no, it's not going to happen. So I had her winning it by 4 percentage points for my final prediction. I pretty much was spot on, but she won it by close to 5 percentage points. So I slightly underestimated her by just a little bit. I had her winning by 4. She won it by 5 at the end of the day. But I thought Glenn Youngkin could really help Donald Trump. That's what he was trying to do. And I believe some counties were forced to switch to paper ballot only because I believe their voting machines were broken. So I think all those things really benefited Donald Trump. But I was correct. Kamala was going to win this state by 4. She actually ended up winning it by 5. And then you have Wisconsin. I slightly overestimated Donald Trump in this state. So my conclusion for this, I didn't use any model. My reasoning for Donald Trump winning Wisconsin by close to 2 percentage points, he actually only won it by 0.9%, so it was a tilt margin, was that because it was the reddest Rust Belt state of the 3 in 2020, keep in mind Wisconsin voted to the right of both Michigan and Pennsylvania, I thought therefore it would be once again the reddest blue wall state in this election for 2024. And it's a very weird state. It actually voted to the left this time around of Michigan and Pennsylvania, which was the complete opposite in the 2020 election. So Wisconsin actually surprised me. And I think it's actually the whitest blue wall state out of all of them. And Michigan and Pennsylvania actually voted to the right, which does not surprise me because Pennsylvania, obviously, Donald Trump got shot there in Butler County, which really boosted his turnout. And not only competitive counties, but also solid blue counties like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the suburbs as well. Trump did way better among suburban women, which is why I had Trump winning Pennsylvania by 1 percentage point. He actually won it by around 2 percentage points, as you can see right here. And then you have the state of Michigan. I correctly predicted Trump would be the winner of this state. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to give it to Kamala Harris because it was the bluest Rust Belt state of the 3 in 2020, in 2016, and the Obama era as well. It voted to the left of both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Biden had won it by nearly 3 points. So I was convinced Kamala would narrowly pull off the victory in Michigan. But because they typically don't split apart, the Rust Belt always votes in unison, I had to slightly give it to Donald Trump, and that saved me. I correctly predicted all 50 states, 312 to 226. I really thought Dearborn, Michigan, and Detroit could be way closer because of what's going on with Israel. A lot of the Arab community endorsed Donald Trump, by the way, and they're really mad at Kamala Harris and Biden administration. And that actually ended up being true. A lot of people were underestimating the large uncommitted vote. Remember, 100,000 people voted uncommitted in the Democratic primaries. So I correctly predicted Trump would win those 3 blue wall states. And then you have New Hampshire. I thought Harris was going to win it by a likely margin of around 5 percentage points because the reason was because as a lot of college educated voters, and that group specifically tends to vote out well for Democrats, and she ended up winning it not by a likely margin, but it was closer to a lean margin of around 4 percentage points. So I slightly overestimated Kamala in the state of New Hampshire. But guess what? It doesn't matter what the margin was. My margins were off, but still I correctly predicted every single state, which I don't think anyone could have done besides me. So there you guys go. To sum up this video, the way I predicted every single state, my explanation is that I did not use any type of model, no 13 keys. I actually used the 13 keys to predict a Trump victory, and I thought Alan Lichtman used them wrong, but I think most of the keys are actually pretty reasonable, but I just think he used them incorrectly. And I did use polls, like I mentioned. I did use some polling data on top of my reasoning as to how I predicted these states. So basically, I went state by state individually, with the exception of the blue wall states. Because I had one state of the blue wall going to Trump, I had to project all three because they vote in unison. They never split apart. And that resulted in me correctly predicting every single state, 100% accuracy, 312 to 226. I hope I can do it again in the 2026 midterms if I'm still around, and potentially in 2028 if I am still around as well. So that's pretty much it. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And to correctly predict every single state, it really was very simple. I did not have to use any type of model that would take me a long time to build. I literally just used reasoning off the top of my head, and I ended up being correct. Therefore, I thought my analysis was very spot on, and I didn't really I was not biased at all. It may seem that way, but the truth was Trump was actually going to win. And now, like I mentioned earlier, if he wasn't going to win, I would probably get that right as well because I was 100% accurate and spot on in this election. So one last final reminder before I end off this video is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out my content, press the like button, share this video. Don't forget we do have memberships. If you're interested, you can find a link to that in the description section. Thank you everyone for watching.